John, many thanks for the invitation to participate in this session. It's a real pleasure. I've been asked to talk about how you prepare your paper for submission, and hopefully some of the things that I have to say will be of use to people who are just embarking on that process. So your paper needs to tell a good story. And most of you will recognise Ronnie Corbett, who in the 70s and the 80s used to sit on his chair and tell a good story. And it always had a good punchline, and your paper should have a good punchline or have a message. But unlike Ronnie, you shouldn't be long-winded, and there's some data to suggest that that's a constant problem with lots of papers that are submitted. So it can be daunting getting started to write your paper. So here's the chap going through the endless drafts of his first publication. And one of the reasons why I think it's daunting is because this is the sort of writing that lots of junior people do for a number of years once they've come out of medical school. So everything is in note form. We've got abbreviations for this, that, and everything else. We're talking about hypertension. We're talking about no LKKS. We never write sentences whenever we are junior doctors. And then suddenly you have to produce something which is suitable for submission to a biomedical journal. And it's a very, very strange thing to be confronted with. So whenever you start out and you do prepare something for submission and you give it to your senior colleague, don't be surprised if it comes back full of red marks, red ink, bits scored out, bits rearranged. That's to be expected whenever you start on this process. Nowadays, it's more likely to be, rather than a hard copy in red ink, it's more likely to be something which has been done on Microsoft Word with lots of changes tracked on it. And as is topical these days, all the important bits have been blacked out at the top, so you can't work out all the essential detail. I'm not sure if you can see this very well, but the first thing you do whenever you want to write a paper is you go to the guidelines for the authors. And this is the guidelines for authors from the BJUI International, not the British Journal of Urology International, but the BJUI International. And if you want to maximise your chances of getting your paper accepted, you've got to adhere to the letter of the law. You've got to follow all of these instructions. And if you just focus down on the bit on the right-hand side here where the instructions relating to references are, you've got to adhere to every single last letter of the law. So that means if you look at the Vancouver style of referencing here, which is recommended by the BJUI International, that means you lay out all your references in this format. And when it comes to the citation, it has to be absolutely identical. So this is from 1986. Well, this is an old reference when it was the British Journal of Urology. But there's a space then in 1986 followed by a colon, followed by a space, followed by the volume in bold, no space, colon, no space 183-7, no full stop. It should be as precise as that. And just one other point to make. One of the things I think people struggle with whenever they start to write in the first instance is they struggle with this et al. Lots of people these days go to medical school having never studied Latin. Et al is short for et alia, the Latin, and others. So it's et al full stop. I certainly come across lots of junior doctors who aren't familiar with that. So essentially what I'm saying is at the end of the process of getting your manuscript ready, you need to have something which is word perfect. And before I used Microsoft Word like everybody else, we used to use a software package called Word Perfect. Your manuscript needs to be word perfect. And it's absolutely remarkable how little attention people pay to that when they start writing in the first instance. And just one other helpful, I hope, hint at this stage is whenever it comes to trying to get your document ready for submission online or in the post or whatever you're doing, try proofreading it backwards. It's easier to pick up mistakes that way. If you read it the conventional way, you don't see the mistakes. So that was a tip given to me many years ago. Now, if you want to spend a long time learning about how you prepare your manuscript for submission, you can go to Google and you'll find lots and lots and lots of websites where you can go to get helpful advice. Most journals will provide helpful advice, but this is quite a good one. It's the website of the International Committee of Medical Journal Editors, and John will be very familiar with this website. The web address is icmje.org, and it's got sections relating to all these things, but in the middle there it talks about manuscript preparation, and you can get lots and lots of helpful information about preparing your manuscript. The whole document's about 38 pages long, but well worth a visit if you are new to the whole process of getting documents ready for submission. So the next few slides are really taken from that website, and most of you will be aware of the fact that most papers being submitted to biomedical journals these days use the IMRAD structure. And that's not just been arrived at randomly. This is something which is a direct reflection of the process of scientific discovery. And IMRAD stands obviously for Introduction, Methods, Results and Discussion. Some other general principles: double space all sections of your manuscript. Nobody who starts writing this, it comes through our department in Leicester, realises that there should be 2 spaces between sentences. That's something that has to be pointed out ad unum. Generous margins should be left so that the reviewers John sends the papers to have plenty of room to write comments and make alterations. Number all your pages, including the title page, and make every single word meaningful. Have no redundancy whatsoever within your paper. And at the beginning, people not familiar with writing use lots and lots of redundancy. So I'll run through a few slides with some of the helpful hints from this website. Let's start with the title page. Make your article title very concise, make it very meaningful, have all the key words in there, make sure that whenever somebody does a search for that particular subject that your paper shows up. This is probably the most important line on this slide. Make sure you include all the authors' names and institutional affiliations, but beware, the author list and the author order can cause huge embarrassment. It is terribly, terribly easy, and I think we've probably all done it. It is very, very easy to upset somebody, often a senior colleague, who has been omitted from an author list. So just be very, very careful about that, and whenever you produce your first draft, make it very, very clear to everybody that it's a draft author list. Put in any disclaimers if there are any, contact information for corresponding author, name and address for reprints, although that's pretty much old hat now because everything's done online and everybody downloads copies. The source of support in forms of grants, a running head, and the word count. The word count should refer only to the abstract, acknowledgement, the text with abstract acknowledgements, references and legends. The abstract's an interesting part of your document because it's the thing you write last, but it's the thing that's read first. And it may be the only bit that's read by lots and lots of people. And it's the portal that influences the readership as to whether they want to read your whole paper. It should provide the following: the content or background to the study, really the IMRAD bits, the study's purpose, the basic procedures, the main findings, and the principal conclusions. And this is something I've only come across recently. Reports of clinical trials are supposed to contain abstracts that include items that the consort group has identified as essential. Now, the consort group, that stands for Consolidated Standards of Reporting Trials, and you can go to this website and there's a checklist of 22 items that need to be completed or thought about before you report on the clinical trial. Then the introduction should provide a context or background for the study. It should state the specific purpose, the research objective, or the hypothesis tested. It should clearly outline the main and secondary objectives. You should only have pertinent references in there. And then your introduction, don't give the game away. Don't include data or conclusions from the work that you're reporting. The methods section, obviously, you should describe the selection of participants, whether that's patients, animals, don't forget about your controls. List the inclusion and the exclusion criteria. You need to give all your technical information, identify the methods, list the apparatus you've used. If you mention some bit of apparatus, you're supposed to put the manufacturer's name and addresses in parentheses afterwards. Give sufficient detail for others to reproduce the methods, give references to established methods, and identify all drugs and chemicals used. I'm not going to say a lot about statistics, but in terms of the statistics, you should describe enough detail to allow a knowledgeable reader with access to the original data to verify the reported results. You should quantify findings with appropriate measures of uncertainty, for instance, your confidence intervals. Don't rely solely on statistical hypothesis testing, such as p-values, because that fails to convey the important information about effect size, and specify the software used.